These claimants share addresses, accounts, and payment information, and every file came through you.
People use relatives' addresses all the time. That's not something I control.
Once is a mistake. Twice is suspicious. Reginald Pace did this across dozens of claims, 2 full years, and an entire region, and left a paper trail connecting every single one of them back to him.
Several claims were approved before inspections were ever scheduled.
Then somebody moved those files faster than I expected.
He would not get the chance to walk back into that office. Within 48 hours, federal agents would seize his work laptop, his personal phone, and a paper trail spanning 2 years of approved claims that should never have existed. $1.5 million in fraudulent payouts, dozens of staged wrecks, a ring of conspirators sharing addresses and bank accounts that no one in the company was supposed to notice. And the only signature standing between their fabricated losses and a real insurance check was his. Real talk, before we go any further. Have you ever filed an insurance claim and wondered how the adjuster actually made their decision? What they looked at, what they did not, who was watching them? Drop a comment and tell me what happened in your case. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. We cover the cases mainstream media buries every single week, and this one is a textbook example of why. Reginald Pace was born in New Orleans East in 1979. His father drove a delivery route for a regional beverage distributor, hauling cases of Barks and Coca-Cola from a warehouse on Almonaster Avenue to convenience stores across the parish. His mother worked the customer service line at a savings bank in Gentilly. Solid working class, nothing extravagant. Reginald was the middle of 3 boys. The family lived in a brick 1-story off Reed Boulevard until Hurricane Katrina took the roof off in 2005, and the rebuild never quite finished. He graduated from McDonough 35 Senior High School in 1997. Average student. Played defensive end for 2 seasons, but did not start. Teachers described him as polite, respectful, and rarely volunteered an opinion. That last trait would matter later. He enrolled at Delgado Community College in the fall of 1997 and took business administration courses part-time while working at a Winn-Dixie on Chef Monteur Highway. He stocked shelves overnight, 3 nights a week, 11 at night to 7 in the morning. The store manager promoted him to floor supervisor inside 2 years and wrote on his evaluation that he was patient with difficult customers and able to diffuse situations without escalating them. In 2001, he transferred to the University of New Orleans and finished a bachelor's degree in business in 2004, taking 5 years total because he never went full-time. He paid his own tuition out of the Winn-Dixie checks. He graduated with no debt and no celebration. His mother kept the diploma on the wall above the dining room table for the rest of her life. His first job after college was at a regional auto and property insurance carrier headquartered in Jefferson Parish. He started as a customer service representative in the call center, answering claims questions on a queue that averaged 47 calls per shift. His supervisor wrote in his first review that he was calm under pressure and showed strong potential for advancement into claims work. In 2007, 2 years after Katrina, the company was still drowning in unresolved property claims. They needed adjusters in the field, and they needed them yesterday. Reginald applied for the claims adjuster trainee position. He was 28 years old. The hiring manager noted in her recommendation that he was local, knew the neighborhoods, and could read a damage estimate without needing his hand held. He was offered the job at the end of the interview. For the next decade, Reginald Pace did the work exactly the way it was supposed to be done. He drove a company sedan with the carrier's decal on the door. He kept a clipboard, a digital camera, and a measuring wheel in the trunk. He inspected wrecked cars and body shop lots from Slidell to Houma. He climbed onto storm-damaged roofs in Chalmette. He sat at kitchen tables with widows whose ceilings had collapsed after a thunderstorm and walked them through the coverage line by line. His performance reviews from 2007 through 2016 used the same handful of phrases over and over. Thorough. Fair to both the company and the insured. Returns photographs and reports within 48 hours of inspection. His settlement averages stayed within the regional norm. He was never the fastest adjuster on the team, and he was never the cheapest, which meant management trusted him. Adjusters who were too fast got audited. Adjusters who were too cheap generated complaints. Reginald sat in the middle and stayed invisible. He married a woman named Tasha in 2009. She worked as a registered dental hygienist at a practice on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. They bought a 3-bedroom ranch house on Aurora Avenue in Metairie in 2011 for $184,000. They had a son in 2012 and a daughter in 2014. By the time the children were in elementary school, Reginald was making $68,000 a year before bonuses, and Tasha was making $52,000. They were comfortable, not wealthy. Comfortable. In 2017, he was promoted to senior field claims adjuster, which gave him expanded approval authority. Up to a certain dollar threshold, his signature alone was enough to close a claim and release payment. Anything above the threshold required a second reviewer. His threshold was $25,000. The vast majority of auto claims and most non-catastrophic property claims fell beneath that line. That promotion is where the story turns. Because Reginald Pace, the patient middle son who had spent his entire adult life being trustworthy, suddenly had the one thing a fraud ring needs more than anything else. He had the signature. Insurance fraud exists because of a simple mathematical fact. Premiums collected from millions of honest policyholders fund the payouts to the small percentage who suffer actual losses. The entire model rests on one assumption. Someone neutral, someone with no financial stake in the outcome, looks at the loss and decides what is real and what is not. That someone is the adjuster. When a policyholder files a claim, the file lands in a queue. An assignment system routes it to an adjuster based on geography and workload. The adjuster contacts the claimant within 24 to 72 hours, schedules an inspection, gathers documentation, photographs the damage, reviews the policy, calculates the loss, and approves or denies the payment. For total losses on vehicles, the adjuster pulls comparable sales data. For property losses, the adjuster generates a line item estimate using industry pricing software. Once the adjuster signs off, the file moves to processing. A check is cut. The money leaves the company's reserves and lands in the claimant's account, usually within 7 to 14 days. The system was designed in an era when fraud rings were small, local, and limited by geography. A staged collision required real cars, real bodies, and a real crash site. A fake water damage claim required a real house and at least a plausible story. The adjuster's eyes on the loss were supposed to be the last and best defense against fabrication. The human in the field was the firewall. But field adjusters work alone. They drive their own cars, manage their own schedules, and write their own reports. A supervisor reviews the file after the fact, mostly looking for math errors and policy misapplication. As long as the photographs match the report and the dollar amount falls within reasonable bounds, the file is approved and closed. Then it is archived. No one watches the adjuster make the decision. No one sits beside them at the inspection. No one rides in the passenger seat, verifying that the damaged Toyota in the photograph is the same Toyota the claimant actually owns. The trust placed in that one person is enormous, and it is necessary, because the alternative is an inspection regime so slow and so expensive that the insurance industry could not function. Reginald Pace knew exactly where every camera in the system pointed. He had been a customer service representative before he was an adjuster. He had seen what triggered audits and what did not. He knew which files got pulled for quality review and which got rubber stamped. He knew the dollar threshold that would trip a second set of eyes. And he knew that if he kept every individual claim under $25,000 and spread the approvals across 3 regions, no single supervisor would ever see a pattern. He had spent 14 years learning where the walls of the system were. Now he was going to walk through the holes between them. The first fraudulent claim under Reginald Pace's signature was filed on March 14th, 2022. The claimant was a man named Devontae Burrell, who reported that his 2014 Nissan Altima had been struck by a hit-and-run driver in a Walmart parking lot in Harvey. The damage estimate came in at $17,400. Burrell provided photographs, a police report number that could not be verified later, and a repair estimate from a body shop on the West Bank. Reginald approved the claim in 43 minutes. There was no inspection. Devontae Burrell did not exist. The name belonged to a man who had died in Baton Rouge in 2018 and whose identity had been harvested from a leaked database sold on a dark web marketplace. The Nissan Altima belonged to the ring. The damage in the photographs was real because the car had genuinely been wrecked, just not on the day or in the place the claim described. The body shop on the West Bank was owned by a cousin of the ring's organizer. Reginald received his cut 4 days after the check cleared. $3,400 in cash, in a folded white envelope, passed to him at a po' boy shop on Veterans Memorial Boulevard at lunch. He ordered a roast beef po' boy with debris, ate it in 12 minutes, took the envelope, and went back to work. The pattern was set. Over the next 23 months, claims under Reginald Pace's signature became a small but steady part of the ring's operation. They filed staged auto collisions across 3 parishes. They filed water damage claims on rental properties that had been deliberately flooded by leaving a tub running overnight onto laminate floors. They filed theft claims on vehicles that had been driven to a chop shop in West Wego and parted out for resale before the ink dried on the report. They filed wind damage claims after thunderstorms, photographing pre-existing roof damage and dating it to the most recent named storm. The cuts were calculated as a percentage. Reginald took between 15 and 20% of every payout he approved. On a $17,000 auto loss, he might pocket $2,500. On a $23,000 property claim, he might walk away with $4,000. The money was always cash, always handed off in a public place, always small enough to deposit in chunks under the $10,000 federal reporting threshold. The scheme escalated. In the first 6 months, Reginald approved 9 fraudulent claims. By month 12, he was approving 3 to 4 per month. In the busiest stretch, between September and December of 2023, he signed off on 19 fraudulent claims totaling $461,000 in payouts. Every one of them was under his threshold. Every one of them moved through the system without being read twice. His cash deposits told a story he should have been smart enough to hide. He paid off the family minivan 18 months ahead of schedule. He paid for a new central air system on the Aurora Avenue house in cash, $8,000 handed to the HVAC company in $100 bills. He took Tasha and the children to Walt Disney World over spring break of 2023 and put none of it on a credit card. He bought a used bass boat from a private seller in Slidell for $11,000 cash and kept it at his brother-in-law's property in Lacombe so he could use it on weekends without making it a household conversation. Tasha noticed. She asked him about the boat. He told her his bonus had come in heavy. She asked about the air conditioner. He told her he had been saving on the side. She did not push. She had no reason to think her husband of 14 years, the man who balanced the checkbook every Sunday afternoon at the kitchen table, was lying to her about anything. His co-workers did not notice anything either. His settlement averages remained within the regional norm. His files closed on schedule. His paperwork was clean. He continued to show up at the regional office every Friday for the weekly team meeting and continued to volunteer for the holiday charity drive every December. No one noticed. No one checked. Her name was Margaret Yee. She was a special investigations analyst at the carrier's regional fraud unit, based in a satellite office in Mandeville. She had been with the company for 9 years. She held a master's degree in data analytics from Tulane and had previously worked for a federal contractor doing pattern recognition on healthcare billing fraud. She wore a cardigan in the office year-round because the air conditioning ran cold and she preferred it that way. In January of 2024, Margaret was running a quarterly review on the carrier's Louisiana claims book. She used a query she had written herself 2 years earlier, after a previous case taught her that fraud rings reuse infrastructure. The query flagged claimants whose contact information overlapped with other claimants in the database, looking for shared phone numbers, shared addresses, and shared bank routing information across unrelated names. The query returned a list of 114 claimants whose information showed at least one overlap with another claimant. Most of the overlaps were innocent. Family members shared phone numbers. Roommates shared addresses. A handful represented identity theft of the routine kind that any large carrier sees every quarter. But one cluster stopped her. 17 different claimants, none of whom were related by surname, shared one of 4 bank accounts. The 4 bank accounts were registered to 4 different limited liability companies in 3 different parishes. The LLCs had been formed within an 18-month window. None of them had any business activity beyond receiving insurance proceeds. Margaret pulled the claim files for all 17 claimants. She started reading at 3 in the afternoon. She did not get up from her desk until after 7. What she found in the first hour told her exactly what she was looking at. Every single one of the 17 claims had been approved by the same field adjuster. Every single one had been approved without a documented inspection date matching the loss date. Several had been approved within an hour of submission. One had been approved in 19 minutes. She pulled the adjuster's name from the file metadata. Reginald Pace, Senior Field Claims Adjuster. 14 years with the company. Clean record. No prior complaints. She expanded the query. She ran a broader search on every claim Reginald had personally approved over the past 3 years. She cross-referenced the claimants against every other claim in the regional database. She built a spreadsheet that grew to 73 rows before she stopped to make herself a cup of coffee and reconsider what she was looking at. 73 claims, approximately $1.5 million in payouts, all under $25,000 each, all approved by the same adjuster. A network of claimants connected by shared addresses, shared bank accounts, and shared shell companies. A pattern hiding in plain sight, invisible to anyone who looked at the claims one at a time, undeniable the moment you laid them on top of each other. She walked the spreadsheet into her supervisor's office at 6:15 that evening. Her supervisor walked it into the regional vice president's office at 8 the next morning. By the end of the week, the case had been referred to the Louisiana Department of Insurance and the FBI's New Orleans field office. Reginald Pace had no idea any of it was happening. That Friday, he attended the weekly team meeting, drank a cup of office coffee, listened to a presentation about catastrophic event readiness for the upcoming hurricane season, and went home to grill burgers in the backyard. Quick break before we get into the investigation. The federal case that built around this man took 91 days from the moment Margaret Yee walked into her supervisor's office. If you want to see exactly how it closed in around him, subscribe and hit the bell. Stories like this one do not get the attention they deserve, and this channel does not let them get buried. The federal investigation lasted 91 days from referral to indictment. Agents from the FBI's White Collar Squad partnered with investigators from the Louisiana Department of Insurance Fraud Division. They started with the 17 claimants Margaret Yee had identified. They moved outward from there, building a network map of every person, business, vehicle, and bank account connected to the cluster. By the end of the second week, the map covered an entire conference room wall and included 41 names. The vehicles were the first crack. Of the 23 auto claims in the cluster, agents traced 11 to a body shop on the West Bank owned by a man named Cleven Duker. Duker had a prior conviction for chop shop activity from 2014. His shop's records, which he had been ordered to maintain as a condition of his business license, were fabricated. The cars in the claim photographs did not match the cars he had supposedly repaired. The repair invoices listed parts that had never been ordered. Duker was approached by agents on a Tuesday morning at his shop. He was offered a cooperation agreement before he could finish his coffee. He accepted. Within 48 hours, Cleven Duker was wearing a recording device under his t-shirt. He met Reginald Pace at a Raising Cane's on Veterans Boulevard the following Monday. The recording captured Pace asking about the next batch of claims. It captured Pace explaining which days of the week were safest to submit, which dollar amounts would clear without secondary review, and which regional supervisor was most likely to skim a file without reading it. The recording captured Pace accepting an envelope containing $4,200 in cash, sliding it into the breast pocket of his polo, and finishing his sweet tea before leaving. Agents executed search warrants 2 weeks later at the Aurora Avenue house, at Pace's company-issued vehicle, and at a storage unit he had been renting in Kenner under his late mother's name. The storage unit contained $63,000 in banded cash, a ledger written in pencil on yellow legal paper documenting payments by claim number, and 3 burner phones still in their original packaging beside a 4th that had been used. The ledger was the smoking gun. Reginald had kept his own records. Every claim, every payout, every cut, page after page of penciled entries in his own handwriting, cross-referenced to the claim numbers in the company's database. He had used initials for the ring members and code names for the regions. The cross-reference was so complete that prosecutors would later joke that he had built their case for them. Text messages recovered from the active burner phone showed Reginald coordinating with at least 4 members of the ring. The messages were not subtle. They were not even careful. Cleavon Duker, January 18, 2024. Got 2 coming in tomorrow morning, both Hondas. Need them clean and fast. Reginald Pace. Submit before 10. I'll have them closed by lunch. Another exchange, February 2nd, 2024, with a different number registered to one of the shell companies. The contact. What's the most I can hit on a single property without flagging? Reginald Pace. 23.5. Don't go $1 over. Another, from late February, 2 weeks before the arrest. The contact. You sure nothing's moving on your end? Reginald Pace. Nothing. We're clean. Don't be paranoid. The case against him was finished before he knew it had started. The arrest happened on the morning of March 6, 2024, at 6:52 a.m. in the driveway of the Aurora Avenue house in Metairie. Reginald was loading his briefcase into the company sedan, getting ready to drive to his first inspection of the day. A real one. A fender bender in Gretna. Tasha was inside the kitchen making coffee. The children were upstairs getting dressed for school. The morning was cool and gray, the way March mornings get in southeast Louisiana before the humidity rolls in for the year. 2 unmarked vehicles pulled up to the curb. 4 agents stepped out. 2 more came around from the side yard, where they had been positioned since 5. The lead agent identified himself, identified the warrant, and asked Reginald to place his hands on the hood of the car. The body cam footage shows Reginald freezing for approximately 3 seconds. He does not look surprised. He does not look angry. He looks tired. The transcript of the exchange reads as follows. Lead agent. Mr. Pace, do you understand why we're here? Reginald Pace. I think I do. Lead agent. Do you have any weapons on you, sir? Reginald Pace. No. Lead agent. We're going to need you to step away from the vehicle and place your hands behind your back. Reginald Pace. Can I tell my wife? She's inside. Lead agent. An agent is going to speak with her. Step away from the vehicle. Reginald complied. He did not resist. He did not ask for a lawyer in the driveway. He did not deny anything. He stood quietly while the cuffs went on and looked once, briefly, at the upstairs window where his son's bedroom light had just turned on. Reginald Pace. How long have you been watching me? Lead agent. Long enough. Reginald Pace. That sounds about right. He was placed in the back of the lead vehicle. The agents began the search of the house. Tasha came out onto the front porch in her bathrobe, holding a coffee cup, and watched her husband driven away from the house they had bought together 13 years earlier. She would not see him outside of a courtroom or a federal detention facility for the next several months. Reginald Pace was indicted by a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Louisiana on March 22, 2024. The indictment ran 51 pages and listed 38 counts. The charges included insurance fraud under Louisiana state statute, wire fraud under Title 18, United States Code, Section 1343, conspiracy to commit wire fraud under Section 1349, and money laundering under Section 1956. The combined statutory maximum exposure exceeded 100 years in federal prison, though no defendant in a case structured like this had ever received anything close to that figure. His defense attorney was a woman named Adrienne Boudreau, a former federal public defender now in private practice in the Central Business District. She filed the standard pretrial motions. Motion to suppress the storage unit search on grounds that the warrant lacked particularity. Denied. Motion to suppress the recorded conversations on entrapment grounds. Denied. Motion to sever the money laundering counts from the fraud counts. Denied. The case is pending as of this recording. Reginald Pace has not been tried. He has not been sentenced. He sits in pretrial detention at a federal facility outside New Orleans, having been denied bond after the magistrate concluded that the storage unit cache, the burner phones, and the unexplained boat in Lacombe suggested a flight risk the court was unwilling to accept. Tasha Pace filed for legal separation in May of 2024. She kept the house. She kept the children. The company's sedan was repossessed within 72 hours of the arrest. The bass boat was seized by the federal government as a forfeitable asset. The Aurora Avenue house was placed under a forfeiture lien pending the resolution of the criminal case, which means that the equity Tasha and Reginald spent 13 years building together now belongs, at least conditionally, to the United States Treasury. Margaret Yee, the special investigations analyst whose query broke the case open, was promoted to senior fraud director at the carrier. She declined every interview request from the local press. She continues to run the same overlap query every quarter. Cleavon Duker, the body shop owner who cooperated, pleaded guilty to a single count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and is awaiting sentencing under a cooperation agreement that will likely result in 18 to 24 months at a low-security facility. The other identified members of the ring have been indicted separately. Several have entered cooperation agreements of their own and are expected to testify if the case ever reaches a jury. The carrier filed a civil suit against Reginald Pace for the full $1.5 million plus treble damages under Louisiana's civil insurance fraud statute. The civil case is stayed pending resolution of the criminal matter. But the math is straightforward. Even with a successful judgment, the carrier will recover pennies on the dollar. Honest policyholders across Louisiana paid for every dollar of those fraudulent claims through premium adjustments that rolled out across 2024 and 2025. The carrier's loss ratios in the affected parishes spiked badly enough to require a regulatory filing with the State Department of Insurance. Every household in the coverage area saw their premiums rise. Every one of them is paying, right now, for what Reginald Pace did at his kitchen table on Aurora Avenue with a pencil and a yellow legal pad. Insurance only works because someone neutral looks at the loss and decides what is real. He was that someone. He was the firewall the entire system depended on, and he sold the decision for 15%, claim by claim, for 2 years, until a woman in a cardigan in Mandeville ran a query he never thought to imagine. His son and daughter are 12 and 10 years old. They have visited him in detention 3 times. The visits last 40 minutes. They are not allowed to bring drawings. This case was disturbing, but the case on the right-hand side might be the most outrageous betrayal of public trust we have ever covered on this channel. Click it now.